Microphone's on, I think.
All right. Good. All right.
All right, let's go. Okay, I call to order the Rolesville Town Board regular meeting scheduled October the 6th. We'll all let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Paul will lead us in the invocation. Thank you.
Which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bow, please. Dear Father in heaven, we want to thank you for this wonderful day you've given us. We want to ask that you be with the sick and continue to bring them back to a better health. We also would ask you to bring peace to our nation at this time. Be with our first responders and our military. And we would ask that you would guide us to make the best decisions for this town. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that, and welcome to everyone here in Chambers to Town Board meeting. Also, the folks that's watching the live stream, welcome tonight. We got a pretty full agenda for the meeting, and we will kind of jump and start right into that. First thing I need to do is review the agenda and ask for any additions or changes, and a motion to approve.
I have a question on consent agenda item number 4. Would like to move it down.
You want to pull that one to talk about? Okay. And since we're talking about consent agenda, do we need to pull number 5 to discuss a date to be determined, or we have a date in mind?
Which one is that?
Number 5 in the consent.
Is that the volleyball?
No, I don't know. It doesn't say. It's SP 20-03.
It is.
I think
It
it's
is
the
volleyball.
volleyball.
We do not have a date yet.
Okay.
Do we need to discuss a date, or just,
I would like, because I've got to recuse myself from that, we're supposed to have all of the site plans and everything to Danny tomorrow. He wanted it by that deadline, and if we dot our I's and cross our T's, as I hope we will, we would like to have the volleyball public building project public hearing in November, so they can close in
Well,
November.
we'll have a better date at the next meeting, so we can publicize it for the next meeting. We just make
do we
sure
need to
that-
discuss it tonight?
No,
We do not.
no.
Okay, so we're just going to pull forward in. All right. All right, do I have a motion to approve the regular agenda?
So moved.
I got motion second, Jackie second. Any more discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any. Sound unanimous, Madam Clerk. Now reports. No, public will be heard. Did we have any, you said we have anybody next door from the public? No?
Live stream, so
Oh, it's
we
not.
may have to prop open the door.
Okay. Is anybody over there to speak for the public? Amy?
Live screen over there.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on then. Next item is the Town Board Liaison reports. Planning Board, Commissioner Melanie
Medley.
Medley.
I've never heard you say the other name before. Okay. So, really not too much to report from the planning board. It was basically the same citizens who have been there for the past couple of weeks. One of the complaints that we later found out about was in regards to, what do you call it? Not reading some of the statements or emails that came through, but I guess a decision had made earlier, and it was stated earlier in the meeting that all of the board members had a copy of all of the correspondence that had came in, so they weren't going to be read aloud during the meeting. What else? We interviewed, Ronnie and I, was it one person so
Yeah,
far?
a Randy,
Can I
Henry,
erase?
Randy
Okay,
Henry.
he has a lot of experience. I think he's an attorney with a lot of experience with,
Board of Adjustment.
adjustments, yes. So anyway, oh, I thought she was looking at me. I was gonna say, am I turned on this time? So, hopefully we'll have a couple of those all tied, the rest of them tied up by the end of the week, hopefully. And we can fill that vacancy that we currently have. And we did have 2 members from the planning board who have offered to be on the steering committee in regards to the UDO rewrite, so that was good as well. And other than that, not too much.
Thank you, Michelle. Parks and Recreation, Commissioner Bill.
Yeah, we had a meeting on September the 23rd, discussed the Carlton Point update with their greenway. Their new business included Parks and Recreation branding. They kind of took our logo, and they're trying to make Parks and Rec have their own logo and their own identity. They kind of help out with everything. Talked about facility naming with our park that we have right now. That's the ballpark that's become part of Rolesville now. We're taking care of that, so they were talking about naming, and they're going to put something together for that for their next meeting. They had an update regarding the farm 30% CD drawings, just showing where they were at in the process for that. They're looking possibly January for a review for that. They discussed cobblestone parking, which was a big issue, and the proposed parking lot that might go with that. There were a few questions raised about that I'll let them bring up further for us to discuss at a later time. And that was it for that.
Yeah, the first thing you mentioned about reviewing the greenways and stuff, greenway plans and stuff like that. Paul and I had a discussion earlier, and I had some discussion with some people on the committee. I think they call it the Open Space Greenway Committee, and really they kind of like us when they get it to them, it's already been done. I mean, everything has been drawn up, been through the technical review, and everything's begun. It's almost like they're asking them to bless it from that standpoint. And it's very difficult for them to make recommendations at that point because it's already done. It's already, it's already been completed, and then they get them to look at it. So something is not quite, I would say, best about that, and it's something I think maybe we talk about, in the UDO rewrite. How do we get that more in the front of before it's all been engineered and finalized? It's a final product when they see it, and at that point in time, as we know here, even us as elected officials, it's hard to get things changed when it's right at the end, So,
And that has been an ongoing problem for years with that committee.
So I'm almost thinking that we would ask Paul to work with the committees, recreation committees, to make suggestions on, to give us on maybe the UDO rewrite, how they can be better fitted into the plan or something. So
Definitely.
maybe take that to your committee and think about, what would you suggest? And also, I think Sheila has raised a couple times about, public greenways are really public. Is public really going to use that? Or, if it's not going to be public used, I don't think the public should pay for the maintenance and all of it, if it's something that they're not going to use. And I think for a public use of greenway, it's got to be connected. If it's not connected to anything, you're not going to drive over to somebody's neighborhood and walk around in their greenway if it's not connected to something. So,
Yeah, but in the past, developers have dedicated the land to the town for the use of public
and I think that's
greenways.
fine.
Yeah, but who's going to keep it up, though?
Well,
If we don't.
once it becomes public, I think we would. But that's something I think let's talk about.
Yeah.
At what point in time does it become really a public thing, and how do we do that? it's a lot of things I've found out in the last few days around the greenways. I think we can kind of do better, and I want to task that greenway team to take a look at it with JG and see what we can do. So appreciate it, Paul. Thanks a lot.
If I can ask Paul a question, I'd like to know the committee's concerns. What were their reservations about the parking with cobblestone?
It was a lot. You have a lot of old trees you're taking out right there. You're already taken off a ton of trees on that outside where the townhouses are all going to sit back there in the woods. Mm-hmm. And you kind of have a section of trees that go from there to the Main Street Park, and you're open there on your greenway. So it's kind of taking out all those majorly old trees on that one edge.
That the
part.
sliver?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you won't have much left there already when you take out for the townhouses, and you'll lose everything. And those are really big trees. I mean, they're not saplings. They look like they've been here for a while. So.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate that. Economic Development, Commissioner Sutton.
Mayor, do you want to invite some people in here so they can
Let's do that.
participate?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Did you know where did you put item number 4 on the agenda that was moved? Which item where did you put that first?
It'll be in the consent.
Where are you going to move it to as far
It'll
as?
stay in the consent. It'll be the last thing we
You'll
approve
ask a
in consent.
question? Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds-
Always leave it in the consent. Economic Development, Commissioner Sutton.
Yes, only have a couple of things to highlight. One is, you guys probably heard about this, the upcoming event that the Chamber is doing, which I think is going to be phenomenal, on October 24th. Mark your calendar. It's Business Saturday in Rolesville. So what they're going to do is basically they've invited businesses to participate, obviously have their doors open. We are social distancing and doing all of that good stuff. But inviting people to, utilize Rolesville businesses. Think about Rolesville businesses. So I think there's several. I want to say there's at least 50 signed up so far that want to participate. So they're going to open their doors, and I think they're going to have some folks out here as well doing like a farmer's market type craft event that same day, and there'll be distance as well. But I think that's just a good opportunity to help our businesses here in Rolesville
Yeah.
be highlighted and be able to share and advertise their business and what they're doing in this environment. So looking forward to that.
I think if I understood what they said was, if it's a brick and mortar, you go to the brick and mortar.
Right.
If it's not a brick and mortar, they're going to have it set up somewhere here where you can, it's like going to
In addition to the market that they normally have on Saturdays, yes. So I just wanted to highlight that, October 24th, you guys mark your calendars. The other thing is REDAC, or whatever it will be called, Main Street Coalition, whatever we come up with, is finally moving forward. I'm happy to report. We've kind of dealt with our whole IRS issues that we had to deal with, so that is in motion. And now Michael and I are working together to come up with, and Kelly, to come up with a mission and goals for this new group, as well as our plan is to reach out to the larger Main Street Vision Coalition that we have. Is probably about 50 people to kind of form a core group. If you all are familiar with Wake Forest Downtown Development Association, that comes to mind when I think of something that we could develop here in Rolesville. So now we are finally, there's some wheels on the bus, and we're moving the bus forward on the REDAC, because I know you guys are probably tired of hearing that. It's been a while. But we're moving forward on that, and we should have more to come next month. We should be hearing more about that. And then the last thing I just want to highlight, something I heard last week about North Carolina. I think this is Governor Cooper's group. They are launching a program to help small, disproportionately harmed businesses by COVID, specifically minority and women-owned businesses. There's a $12 million grant amount of money, and they're giving up to $25,000 to those businesses. Just want to highlight that during this whole COVID process, when we had the PPP loans, a lot of those businesses were left out of that.
Right.
And so I appreciate that North Carolina is doing this. I know that we had a particular business here in Rolesville that went out of business that happened to be woman-owned, and she was a minority. So hopefully this will help some of our businesses in Rolesville, but please make people aware. And we're going to put this on our link, if it's not already there, for economic resources as well as on the chamber site. But I think that's important to note. Michelle, too, she's a business here in Rolesville.
I heard about it.
Yeah, so
Good.
anyway, just wanted to highlight those things.
Thank you. I think, Kelly, if you would, maybe let's put it on a future agenda, you guys to give a report on, I guess, I know we have got some funding for some type things. maybe give us a report of what, kind of a COBA update from a standpoint of funding and what's available and what we may be able to get in the future type thing. I know Michael's been working really hard and strong on that. Maybe a report from Michael sometime in the future would be great. One of the future meetings. Thank you for bringing that up. Public safety, Commissioner Wilson, you have anything?
I understand the fire department board met with the people that's doing the analysis and to give us advice on a proposed merger. And they met last night. Kelly, I believe. We don't have any notes or any feedback on that yet. Our annual meeting is the 19th of this month. So we haven't met since our last meeting 2 weeks ago. So I really don't have anything to report.
No, I don't know if the commissioners have met with them yet or not. see
I
Paul.
thought that Sheila and I had a very productive meeting.
Yeah.
We did a Zoom meeting with them last week, and I liked the questions that they asked, and I feel like they answered our questions in a very positive way.
Yeah, Michelle and myself met with them earlier today, which means after they met with the fire department last night, and I think it kind of reconfirmed some of the things we heard about the career employees is really a big concern because they're looking for some better benefits than what is being offered here in fire department in a private fire department. So it's going to be interesting to see. They said that they put a report together for us, and we'll be able to kind of find out what's going on. So.
Yeah, they said it would probably by in a couple weeks. Me and April met with them as well today. So, yeah, and we had actually asked them too, if there was anything that stood out, and they felt like we were kind of all on the same page. So that's a good sign. I feel like we're not really everywhere. We're really focused. So.
Okay, well, good. Thank you. Appreciate all the work and involvement, engagement that board members do. Thank you very much, and I appreciate those reports. Consent agenda. The items on there you can see. The one that we will pull is number 4, which is a call for public hearing, case ANX 20-3 Harper Communities Suite of Property. So we'll pull that for some discussion. How about the other 5? Did I hear a motion for those?
Motion to approve consent agenda with the exception of item number 4.
Okay. Got a motion second. All in favor say aye.
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 Okay. I hear any opposes? All right. The other item, the call for public hearing, ANX 20-03. It was proposed to be November the 3rd, 2020. Sheila, any particular thing you want to discuss on that?
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the point of annexation. Like, I know anyone can bring that up, but
Yeah.
why are we considering an annexation at this point when, my concern on that road is traffic? So I just want to understand, obviously, there's an annexation to hopefully develop this land at some point, but I just need to understand where we are on traffic before we annex another piece of land for development.
Yeah, I think it's legal. It's legal that they have to do that. David, if you wanted to talk about that,
That's right, Mr. Mayor. Items, this item and matter 6 on your consent agenda essentially work together. In order to consider the zoning petition that has been brought forward, the town will also need to bring the property into its jurisdiction. This site is currently outside of the ETJ, so the property will need to be annexed and then rezoned once it's in our jurisdiction through annexation.
So in order for 6 to take place, we have to do 4. What if we annex it but then we don't approve the community.
So if you were to annex the property and then take no action, after a period of 60 days, the property would lose its county zoning and would become unzoned.
That for me again.
So once you annex new property into the jurisdiction, you need to assign to that property new zoning that aligns with our UDO.
Gotcha.
So the way this is typically brought forward by folks who want to come into the community as part of a development effort, and typically that's because in order to receive water and sewer, you need to be part of a municipality. So the annexation petition and the zoning petition tend to walk together.
Yeah, they don't necessarily have to be on the same night, but we chose to put them on the same night because, like you said, they kind of go together. Is that my understanding?
That's right. It avoids the peculiar situation of having to ask the town attorney, can we rezone something that we have no jurisdiction over? Or the opposite, would we annex something where we're not sure what we would want to have it zoned to be?
So in this case, being that they almost tied a little bit together, can we do the public hearing on both of them first, and then vote on annexation and the I guess the zoning after the two public hearings? Or?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and that's pretty common.
Right.
Okay, so if I'm a property owner, and I'm selling that land, I would want the site plan approved before the annexation, because if the site plan was not approved, all of a sudden I've been annexed into Rolesville. Now I'm paying city and county taxes. Is that correct?
That's correct. Upon the effective date of the rezoning, once you are inside the city limits, then the city's taxes would also apply.
Yes. So I would want the site plan approved before the annexation.
According to what he said, my understanding is, according to the state of North Carolina, we can't take any action until we annexed it.
Well, we can certainly discuss it.
We can discuss
We,
it.
we would not want to be in a situation where we have annexed it and we are not ready to assign a zoning district to it.
Okay. Okay.
I think that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and it's a little bit confusing. It's a little bit confusing because if it's in the ETJ, I understand you don't have to do this.
We've done this so many times. though,
That's
and
correct. So if the property were already in the ETJ, it would already have a Rolesville zoning district assigned to it, so this doesn't come up.
It's a technicality almost. Right.
Big one.
Illegal. What was you saying?
I said we've done this so many times.
Yeah.
I remember I questioned it before
Yeah.
too, but it was just.
Well, very seldom have we annexed something in that was not in our ETJ, though.
Well, I'll remind you that we annexed all of, because of this reason, we annexed all of Ammon's when he was doing the property up there, Jones and all. All that stuff was in our.
That was it.
It was in the town for 10 years before anybody ever done anything up there. Because they
But it
did
was
that.
in our ETJ.
No, it was annexed.
It was not. Okay. I'll stand
Because it
corrected.
wasn't in our ETJ at the time that
Okay.
Andy was doing it. So.
Okay. All right.
So that's been in our city limits for 12 years probably.
Wow.
And we just taken action on it.
Okay.
This could happen the same way, couldn't it? Because once we annex it, it's in the town.
That's exactly right, but I would suspect that this is going to be a purely legislative zoning consideration for the board, and that the board will have conversations with the property owners and with the prospective builder, and the board members will likely have some sentiment as to whether there is support for the proposed zoning case, perhaps before you ever have to think about the annexation issue. In most cases, in my experience, the annexation comes along for the ride.
Okay. All right. Good enough. Good discussion. Do I hear a motion for item number 4 in the consent?
You okay with it?
So moved. I'm good.
Yeah.
Second.
I have a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed on this one? All right. Thank you. Appreciate that. How we coming back there? Are we on live yet?
Were and now you aren't.
So we're going back and forth.
Coming
Sometimes,
and going. Gone for a little bit and now it's back off.
okay, so it's kind of coming,
You're
going.
not gonna be on. We should assume you're not gonna be on.
Assume we're not going to be on. Okay.
If I ask for people
Now,
who want
they
to
can
be
stay, they can stay in here if they want to,
Yep.
so they won't have to go back and forth. So we off now then, is that what I hear?
Off.
Yes. That's my knowledge, Mayor.
Okay. Let's take a 5-minute recess and see if we can get it going before we jump into items of business. It'd be nice to be able to video that piece of it, being that it's a public hearing. So let's take a 5 minutes and see if we can't get this thing up and going again. Thank you. your mics on. Okay. Call to order, Rolesville Town Board meeting. Next item on the agenda is the public hearing. This is legislative case ANX 20-04, Mitchell Mill Road Investors, LLC, Callis Farm Voluntary Annexation. This is a continuation from 9-1. So I will open the public hearing and have an introduction from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. As you've already introduced, this is a proposed voluntary annexation of a non-contiguous area to the town of Rolesville. This portion consists of 66.123 acres, and the closest road to it is Medley Farm Road. This tract is part of the Callis Falls subdivision. Oops, sorry. So, let me get to, bear with me a second, my pointer's gone away. So this is Rolesville Road, this is Fowler Road, this is Mitchell Mill. The gray area is what's already in Rolesville, which was the original Callis Falls Rogers Farm subdivision that was approved prior to 2016. And then, of course, last year, there was a new revision with as a PUD, with rezoning change to residential PUD, and a master plan that was approved in, I believe it was November of 2019. The property also included this portion in the back that was zoned and included in the master plan, and that is what you have petitioning to bring it into the town limits so that the whole subdivision is in the town of Rolesville. So this red area here is the property in question to add to this property. Currently, this tract is a satellite, non-contiguous to our primary corporate limits. And so therefore, this tract will also be a non-contiguous annexation and will be added adjacent to the existing town limits. Oops, sorry. So you have your map in there of the actual annexation boundary, which identifies the area, the acreage, and the description. It's in the resolution. So you have a ordinance to adopt and recordation of this map as well. So that if you so choose to annex this, it will be brought into the town limits. And the resolution makes the effective date today, if you so decide to adopt it. Is there any questions?
Any questions for Danny?
So this property was, I'm skipping a little bit farther ahead, but the neighborhood that's laid out on this, was the neighborhood always considered a part of this?
This portion was included with the
initial.
addition of Callis Falls. When Callis Falls went through rezoning, it included this property as well.
Okay. We're just talking annexation, but yeah, okay.
But when it was annexed previously, it was not included, but it was added later here more recently because the opportunity to negotiate and get the property. I think the petitioner can explain that.
Okay, any other questions for Danny? Okay. I will hear comments from the public, or either I can take a introduction from the applicant, either one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Jay Galeese, represent Mitchell Mill Road Investors LLC, work on the Callis project, and basically I'm here to answer any of the questions. I might add that we are inside your ETJ, so that might help a little bit. Thanks.
And I'm assuming you're in favor?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, we are. We're speaking on behalf.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah. Any other comments from anybody in favor? No one is in the other room at all, Robin? No? Okay. All right. I will take comments from the public in opposition. Is there any opposition? All right, before I close the public hearing, I ask the board, is there any questions you guys have for anyone, either Danny or the applicants, before I close the public hearing? All right. I'm going to close the public hearing, and I will turn it over to the board for deliberations and a decision. The wishes of the board on this one.
I'll make a motion to approve the non-contiguous voluntary annexation of case ANX 20-04 Mitchell Mill Road Investors LLC into the Rolesville town limits to be effective October 6, 2020.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion second. Any other discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any. I think it was unanimous there, Madam Clerk. And I'll say unanimous to approve. One thing I'll comment on this, Jackie. You made the comment about if you own the land, you would not want to annex it first because you'd be paying taxes. Now, what if you was in these guys' place and we decide not to annex it?
Well,
Would you want to be in that position after all the work they've gone through?
I would want to feel comfortable that the site plan was going to be approved before my taxes went up.
But you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand.
It's a big risk, It's a big risk by not doing it first, too, Because we did have a board change from last time it was approved, so this is a different board.
Yeah.
And the board could take a different decision, so. But, it's all relevant in what perspective you look at it, I think, Jackie. Okay, next item. This is administrative approval. Just kind of awareness, some towns allow staff to do administrative approvals. In our case, we have the town board approving the preliminary substation plat plans, and which is, like I said, it's kind of administrative process in some places. It is not a public hearing. Kind of way I would do this is Danny will kind of give us an introduction or staff introduction, and then we will deliberate and vote on it. I do have, some people here. If you do have a question, any deliberations, that's, we'll entertain that and allow the applicants to answer any questions. But it is a somewhat of an administrative type procedure we hear now, which is a little different from the one we just had. Anything you want to add, David, to clarify that? And did I say that correctly?
You did, Mayor. Perfect.
Great. All right, Danny, it's up to you.
And let me just
tell
say,
us why you think we should approve this.
well, thank you, Mayor. And in explaining administrative approval, what that means is under the UDO, you are designated as the final body to approve preliminary plats. When they come in, they get reviewed through the technical review committee for the technicalities of it. It goes to the planning board for recommendation, and it comes before this board for final approval. And that's why it's administrative. It's part of the UDO process. So we have PR 2005, Callis Falls Preliminary Plat Subdivision. It's a major subdivision approval of 454 single-family lots on 282.71 acres. And it is subject to the residential PUD zoning and residential PUD development zoning and the PUD master plan, which was SUP 1901. And in there's a lot of conditions and requirements that to be addressed as they move forward. Skip that. Here's the location. Sorry for that red line is not showing up too good because it's covered up by partially the city limits. But all of this area in red, outlining in red, is Callis Falls subdivision that includes these 3 tracks all through here. It's like a C, as you see over here. It almost looks like a C. And it wraps around these properties that are not in the town limits or ETJ. Our ETJ limit line stops right there. All the white area is outside the current ETJ, but this area is in our urban service area. This property and this was all previously in the ETJ. It's currently zoned residential PUD, which is what outlined conditional zoning, and there was conditions approved with the zoning as well as the special use permit to cover a number of things, and I'll hit some highlights briefly here just now. Now, the future land use plan adopted in 2017 classified as parcel medium density residential, which is what the zoning classification in this development is consistent with. And I've already identified the zoning of this property and the special use approval of the master plan. So you have in your packet more details. I did not try to show it all on the slides here tonight. But basically, this is all the single-family development. Wraps around. There's 3 entrances. There's one here, and a third one right this location. They will wrap and connect here, and then, of course, collect north and south, west and south with street stubs, as well as one to the north to the adjoining property to the north as well. So there's continuation of the street development with 3 accesses. The townhome phase is over here, and that will come to you later after they get their site plan, and we'll, of course, do a preliminary plat when that's ready.
They were included in that number you gave us earlier.
They are not included in the number.
Not.
This is only the single-family lots you see outlined here. So,
So once that's determined, that will come back to us?
yes, that will be a future case. It will be in 5 phases. This is phase 1, phase 2, 4 phases. I stand corrected. 4 phases. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then, of course, this is the 4th. So basically, they're going to be building from the road going back. They will be extending, previously was approved, and construction drawings has been approved, an outfall sewer line connecting to the existing sewer line just in that the dam area of Upchurch Lake, on Upchurch Road there. And, of course, they will be extending the water line from the high school all the way down to the southern point here, all the way down Rolesville Road to serve this property. And that's already been previously approved when it was the original Callis Falls of 2016. There will be road improvements and sidewalks and et cetera on half of the road on this side. This is the northern side here, which was the piece to the top. And then this is the other 2 entrances to the south. So based off the traffic impact analysis and DOT's review, includes turn lanes, deceleration lanes, et cetera. This section...
I have a question about the road improvements. The road improvements, if we go back to the yellow and orange, and I'm partially colorblind, is that right?
There you go.
Okay. All right, so the road improvements appear to be at both sections of the yellow.
That's correct.
What about the white in the middle layer? Amazon Trail.
That is something you're negotiating, dealing with a reimbursement agreement that come to you at a later date. It's still in discussion. That's my understanding.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, that concerns me that you're going to approve 2 spots and then you're going to leave a space in between those not widened. And to me, that looks like a traffic jam in the making and an accident. So I want more of an explanation on why it's not contiguous, why it's not done contiguous.
And an action of that is not part of the preliminary. It would be a separate action to discuss. I'll let the manager or town attorney address that.
Sure. Danny can remind me. I believe there is a condition in the approval that requires the improvement of the road all the way through and the negotiation of a reimbursement agreement. That is in process now. The significant legal provisions of that have been resolved, and we are now working on the details for the improvements description, which is Exhibit B, and an overall budget, which has been provided to us, and the manager and I have requested additional detail to break that budget, or not budget, but estimated costs into a more granular description so that we can bring that back to you. We had hoped to have that before you today, but that now will likely come to you at your next meeting. But it is a condition of their approval.
Okay. It
That-
is a condition of the approval.
that is right.
It has to be contiguous, has to be done.
That is that the full set of improvements be made for that section.
Okay, then I'm okay.
Yeah, if I recall, you was asking, if I recall, we had this same discussion when it went through the approval process, and that's when I think we added a condition in there
Okay,
during the
good.
meeting to,
This last year?
yeah, I think it was.
November of 2019.
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
I think it was late last year.
So when I was out with my knee surgery.
Okay.
But if you recall, I think during that meeting, that public hearing meeting, they agreed to,
Okay.
include that
As
condition.
long as we've got that covered, I'm good. Okay.
And again, it is a separate approval. This action does not bind you on that approval, but you still got some conditions and things to discuss later, dealing with the in-between portion.
But when we have something that is based on something else being done, I think it should be a part of our packet.
Well, I think we're doing some refinement of the documentation to bring forward to use why it was delayed.
Right, but I'm saying it should be an asterisk to note that this is in process, just like what just happened. But it's helpful to have that to kind of see beforehand.
Yeah, and we did, I think the first step, we had to develop that policy to be able to do it. Is that right, Kelly? And we, if y'all recall, we had.
I remember
We did the policy now.
He put-
But it is part of the condition of approval, my understanding, so it has to happen. Right? It has to happen.
It has to happen if the board chooses for it to happen. It is a condition. If the board were to go in another direction and decide the board did not want to do that, I'm sure the developer would happily not do that part. That's right.
But I think the board still, Jackie for one, still wants it done, so, and Sheila too, so.
Okay.
Roads matter.
Thanks for clearing that up.
So, if I'm sorry, let me get back to talk about the road improvements. And of course, this is just a simple diagram from the plan that explains the widening, additional paving, just the curbing on the one side. There will be some asphalt put on the other side for the turn lanes and a sidewalk, and some additional right-of-way. This is is a major road highway in the Rolesville 2002 Rolesville Transportation Plan, and it calls for half, under our ordinance, half of the road widening and right-of-way dedication and improvements for one half of the improvements from the center line over, for two travel lanes with the center turning lane, including curb and gutter with sidewalks on both sides. Of course, the other side will not get sidewalks. It would just be additional asphalt to get the lane shifted to get it in the center turn lane, plus the outside lanes going up to the existing, which was shown on the previous picture. It is included in the preliminary plat. Traffic impact analysis was prepared previously, that was approved through the previous rezoning case and special use permit that includes specific road improvements, specific turn lanes, lengths, etc., and also at the intersections of the new road, as well as stoplight installation at Mitchell Mill Road, with a threshold based off the number of units, the permits that are issued. That's already previous part of the special use permit and the rezoning case.
That was done in 2019.
That was done in 2019. And the TIA did say that once the warrant, they're going to be in a warrant investigation, and once the warrant investigation is determined and approved by DOT is when the developer will put in the stoplight. Because right now it's a four-way stop.
Yeah, and it looks like our options were 100th, 300th, and 450th for those.
That's the thresholds for the warrant study, yes. And once the warrant study gets approved by DOT is when the requirement will trick in. Because that's when it says it needs to be done. Thank you. So TRC's reviewed this preliminary plat and recommends approval. It's gone through fire, City of Raleigh, getting the right town I'm at, City of Raleigh, and Wake County Stormwater Erosion Control, as well as Fire Marshal's Office, as well as staff and Parks and Recreation for review of the Recreation and Open Space and Greenway Plan. Staff recommendation.
I see a unanimous vote. Were there any concerns expressed by any of the planning board members?
There was discussion by planning board members, but the vote was unanimous.
Right. Or were there any concerns expressed by the planning board that you recall?
There were questions raised about the traffic, which we explained the traffic impact analysis and summary of it. I did not hear any board members say that they were opposed to the plan.
I didn't use that word, but we'll move on. So on this particular road, will it ever be like wider than 2 lanes? Is that in our plans?
In your draft of the upcoming plan, that's not official, it is recommending 4-lane road with a center turn lane, narrow median from Fowler Road down to Mitchell Mill. But that's not official, so therefore I can't go
I got you.
impose that at this time. There comes an issue when the need of widening the road comes up in the future.
Got you. Okay, thank you.
It would have been really nice if that we'd had done a transportation plan years ago. So, as you've already identified, that they did meet on, the planning board did meet on May 28th and voted unanimously to recommend this preliminary plat. Is there any other questions of staff?
I got a couple specific ones. I don't know if it would be of staff, though.
Okay.
Back in November, when we were discussing this, we had additional parallel striping on Falls Bluff Drive for parking along there for the greenways. That was included in that. I just want to make sure that I didn't see anything on the drawings showing that, but I mean, they're not real super detailed yet, but.
Yeah, are you referring to the crosswalk?
No, it was like, we were asking for parking, so somebody.
Oh, there was parking spaces. Yeah, that will be something that'll be incorporated in the construction drawings. It's not quite drilled in it here in the preliminary.
Okay.
But yeah, I know what you're talking about, street parking.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to confirm, there's no private streets still in this.
There is private alleys.
Private alleys.
There's some private alleys that's in the back of the lots, and they will be privately maintained through the HOA, not the town.
I know that was an issue before.
Generally, they're right down in this area.
Let's see. The other question I had was the access to the falls via the greenway, if that was still showing that way. There's a set of falls back behind.
Yes.
There. Yeah.
The falls is in this area, I believe, and the greenway's going in that vicinity.
And then I did see there was an option on drawing 2.12 for the greenway. There was 2 options. One of them goes through a BMP, one of them doesn't, but I wanted to see, I mean, obviously you're going to do the easier of the 2, but I just wanted to see if there was a reason why.
The reason the alternate was done was we think we can do it, but there are some issues of the slopes and vertical. There could be some issues trying to put it, and it's close to a sewer line.
Okay.
You really don't want to put a greenway on top of the sewer line, because if you do, and the city of Raleigh has to ever go repair it, the town's responsible to go put the greenway back.
Okay.
If you offset it a little bit, you don't have to worry about that issue because it's not over the sewer line or the manholes. But the issue is because of the tightness in there and topography, it was best to look at it at the construction drawings, and then we have the alternate, which would bring it between, you look at the second alternate, it comes between three of the lots south, comes up to the road, it'll be a side path up to the intersection, and then go across. Actually, that plan would be better because you'll have your crossing at an intersection versus through the middle of a street.
Now, I was going to ask, the next question was, there's an intersection up further, the Greenway crosses that, right, if you bring your red dot down just a little bit.
Yeah, let me go to, this one here's got the
Yeah.
dark line is the Greenway.
I see it crossing up there. I feel like I know why you did that there, because it actually goes to an intersection now instead of actually going out in
Right.
a second intersection. Okay.
Which is a safer crossing. People expect people to cross at an intersection versus going back a block and have another Greenway crossing here back away.
Let's see.
And whose perspective is that? Is that yours?
It's a recommendation from transportation and visibility for safety of pedestrians, because one of the things we don't want to happen is pedestrians get hit. And by going to that intersection, you're increasing a
No, but where did that come from? The
TRC as well as DOT and our town engineer and Parks and Rec director, and I think it was, it should have been, and I'm pretty sure it was brought to the committee.
You know, the other perspective, you're breaking the Greenway up.
Yes, that's true. If you want to try to make it a greenway, you move it back, but then you may have a safety issue with people expect crossings at intersections and you're so close, why wouldn't you put it there, I guess is what it comes down to. But it's whatever you wish to do, but this was with the recommendation that was
And
put
that's one
forward.
of the things, you know, not to take too much here about Paul, but I think all Greenway crossings need to have some type of, you know, safety thing.
Right.
So, you know,
Identification, marking, et cetera, which will be in the details of the construction drawings.
but really, you know, you break a Greenway up, you really break up the usage of it in a way.
This is a side path, which is 10 feet wide. It's not a sidewalk.
I know. But, you know, if you bike in the Greenway, that's going to be an interruption to you right there.
You can bike on the side path too. But that's fine.
You do it on the sidewalk if you wanted to, but it's not the best way to do it.
Well, normally we wouldn't want it on the sidewalk. You're correct. But you can with a 10-foot side path. That's what it's designed to accommodate.
And I think that's where I think we need to make sure that the Greenway people have a chance to have more say-so in.
And let me just say, this has already been identified. We do have an RFP for the Greenway plan to be updated, and this is also a design issue that should be specifically spelled out in that plan that would be incorporated part of our specs.
Right.
That's one of the elements we're lacking, is a clear standard specifications to guide us as staff.
I only had one other thing. It was mentioned there was additional agreements between the developer and neighbors. Has that been included in this plat plan? I don't know what those additional agreements were, but.
There was agreements dealing with lot sizes and arrangements and access, and that's all been incorporated here. This plan is following what was presented with the master plan.
That's all I had for this. Thanks.
The two-option one, where is that at, Paul? I didn't pick up.
It's a lower one, right where that black dot is, right in the middle of the drawing.
So that dot's.
If you go straight down from there. Yeah, so it either goes zigzags right through there, or it goes around that kind of rectangle. It's down at the lower end of that, very bottom.
Yeah.
That's the alternate path right through there.
You want to see?
Because you got a BMP and some topography and slopes that may make this difficult in the back of these lots. We'll know more when they get to more detailed drawings, with the construction drawings.
Okay, good question, Paul. Any other board members have questions for the staff?
So
Thank
the
you, Dan.
recommendation is to approve. It does meet the technical requirements.
Gotcha. Any questions you have? I tell you, we'll go into deliberations at this time. And if any questions come up in deliberations you have for the people here representing development, we can get them to answer that, I think. So, so what's the wishes of the board on the PR 20-05 plat?
It's hard for me to see the maps, and I did get larger copies of some of the maps, but are these townhomes clustered at the bottom left? I guess if I could have a description of what's
No,
what?
those are single-family lots. They're smaller lots.
They're single, so where are there townhomes?
Townhomes are right here. It's in the
There's
white.
no townhomes spelled out?
No
on-
townhomes on this
Okay.
plan.
I got you.
It's a
Okay.
reserved area that
I
they
got
have
you.
to come back when
They'll
they.
be bringing that in later.
Perfect, okay, thank you. I don't think I have any other questions.
Other questions for anybody?
Are the greenways marked as public, just in general in Rolesville? Because I know we had some questions about.
The ones here identified will be public. The ones here on this plan are public.
Specific easements owned by the town.
Yes, and it will be a public dedication.
Is that standard in Rolesville?
What's that?
For town maintained, yes.
Yeah.
They're marked public. And the only reason I say that because you're in a subdivision.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing for them to consider, because I agree. I think if you see a greenway, if it's public, it ought to be marked. This is
Right.
a public, this is Rolesville Public Greenway
Because otherwise
system.
you don't know. I was
Don't
on
know.
one the other day, it's a HOA one.
Well, they're also working on branding for the greenway, so that will help identify public versus others.
I think that's helpful.
Yeah, they have signage and everything.
But I think you're right. I think it needs to be designated where the public would know it's public.
Otherwise it's not public.
That's right. Questions? Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion if not.
I make a motion to, is there a thing in here for me to approve it?
It is.
Okay, you read it, Jack, because I'm not on.
All right. I make a motion to recommend approval for the preliminary subdivision plat for case PR 20-05, Callis Falls, as presented.
Second.
Second. Oh,
Let me just correct, it's not recommended, it's actually approved. I'm sorry if that's what the memo said.
Okay. Okay.
Who seconded it? Was it Sheila?
Joe had it
All
first.
right, Shell second. I hear a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, I call for vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not any. Madam Clerk, unanimous. Okay, thank you. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, applicants, and hope you guys can get to work soon, so.
I will add that when that road goes in, the developer is going to do all of the improvements at one time, all the way through
Right.
the men, so it will not impact anymore. So,
Right.
just FYI.
Good.
So,
That's
thank you.
smart.
Thank you, Carl.
Very good. The next item is another administrative approval case, PR 20-01, the Point Phases 1 through 10, preliminary plat. I thought it was 1 through 10 and 14 or something. So this is a little bit incorrect then.
There is a 14.
Okay, so I thought it was. So Point Phases 1 through 10 and Phase 14 preliminary substation plat.
Thank you, Mayor. And as you already introduced, I skipped all that part there, but this is a major subdivision administrative approval for 485 single-family lots located on 2.64.27 acres. And again, it's subject to the residential PUD zoning and the residential, the PUD master plan that was approved in 2018. That's under SUP 1809. Was the case number. So this is the southern portion of it. There is another portion in the north that you'll see someday in the future. It's in the review. This is the southern portion. This is the bypass. It runs right along here. This is the village of Rolesville on the opposite side, and Cedar Lakes with the vacant land in between. Rolesville High School is here. There's Quarry Road in that location. And of course, the lower driveway going to the high school parking lot and facilities is down in this location. So this will run essentially from Quarry Road south. There is a corner tract that you'll see on the plan that's commercial, that's not included in this plan, that will come developed later and is not in the same ownership as the developer of this subdivision. So it's a separate tract, which was part of the master plan.
Where's the village on there? Is that the village?
Village is right here.
That's not Carlton Point?
No, that's not Carlton Point. That's Redford. There's your there's a roundabout, and the other roundabout as you come into the entrance from Food Line.
Yeah, it's on the other side of the,
It would be down this way.
Carlton Point would be further to
Further
the,
down,
off the
okay.
map.
Gotcha,
This is Cedar Lakes. This is Virginia Waters Drive right here.
gotcha, okay.
And I'm just doing that because it was giving you some orientation. It's still on the opposite
Right,
side
it's
of the
hard to see,
bypass.
So, yeah, thank you for that.
And this is East Young Street. And of course, it's Quarry Road was one of the big areas that was included in the traffic impact analysis. I probably should go ahead and jump to that, to which includes a similar standard based off the number of units to do a warrant study and to install the traffic light at this location at their expense. They also are participating in the cost of the traffic light for Mitchell Mill. They have a shared cost that will benefit Callis Falls, because they also identified that this development so large will have potential impact to people going down the Mitchell Mill Road and going over to the bypass. And also the third thing is it also includes evaluations of the bypass to evaluate the turns, the U-turns for traffic at peak times to determine what needs to be improved. And of course, that's part of the agreement. The developer is responsible for that as well, because this is all based off the generation of traffic of this development impacting those roads.
So this is where improvements will be made to Young Street at that point?
There will be widening from Young Street from this point all the way down to the lower end of the high school, opposite side.
How much widening? We're talking about a turn lane?
It would be a turn lane. It will be widening with curb and gutter, three-lane road section, just like the other case was. So that is the area right there. And let me,
Just,
In regards to the commercial aspect of it, I know that it's separate. Other that they make the one complete PUD.
it's part of the PUD, but it's two different owners right now.
So, okay, and I get that. So how do you determine?
Jill, we can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me? I'm so sorry. I
You turned away from
Once
the mic.
again, thank you. Sorry about that. So I guess my question is, how do you determine? I get that this here, part of the development cannot start, is this on? Yeah, it cannot start before 2021 of next year for the residential part, correct?
There is no specific condition.
I thought there was. They couldn't
Not-
start. for the
No.
residential.
That one is, okay, I think I know what you're talking about. There's nothing tied to the commercial.
Right, I'm sorry, I jumped back to the residential.
Okay, now the other one is September of 2021, the northern half cannot start construction. That is a condition on the northern half, and that's not what we're talking about tonight.
Oh, that's across the street.
That's on the opposite side. And that's a case that'll come to you later. They are wanting to go ahead and get their preliminary approved and get their construction drawings to be ready for that date to start construction, and they'll come to you later.
Okay, so, yeah, so going back on the Rolesville High School side, so with the commercial part.
That's
even
just
though
right here.
That's separate, I get that, but what is the time frame on that?
It's still retained from the original owner. He did not sell it to the housing developer, and he is marketing that site. That's all I can tell you. He's marketing that site to find a tenant to go in there, and he's looking for somebody to buy the
So
property.
part of the conditions for this PUD, for the point, does not include the commercial aspect. So what's making?
It designates the area for commercial, but it does not go have a timeline identified to get it accomplished.
But I'm just trying to figure out how did that happen? I mean, I'm sure it was done correctly, but I'm just saying. 'Cause
Well, it goes back to the original approval years ago. It's back 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay, so that commercial park, in actuality, can be built 10, 15, 20 years later.
Most likely when there's a future tenant would want to develop there.
Where's the commercial part?
It's that area I got in red, right here.
Oh, okay.
I'll show you it on the bigger map in just a second. I think it shows up.
Okay, that was it.
Oh, I see it. Okay.
So it is mixed-use resident, it's a mixed-use neighborhood development under our land use classification under 2017 comprehensive plan. It is a residential PUD, and of course, it does incorporate the zoning and the special use permit of 18-09 master plan with the requirements and revisions of it. Now, I did this one a little different because it's a very big project, a lot of acreage and very density. There's no way you could see that. So what I've done is there's about 18 slides to give you section by section if there's a particular question. But basically, this is just to orient you here. This is Quarry Road. There will be another entrance further south between Quarry Road and the lower driveway, the southern drive, I guess you would call it the eastern driveway of the high school. It's right here in the middle. It's in between the two ponds. That's the way to say it. And then there is a lower section that would be the future townhomes, and it's in this lower section. It, of course, has street stubs to adjoining properties, greenway trails. It does connect to the underpass, the pedestrian underpass opening under the bypass.
Is the third entrance right in front of the high school? Does that pick up
Yes,
right in
and
front
I'll
of
be
the
able to
high
show you
school?
that when I get to that particular image. But you can, of course, look at it with your documents you have in front of you. This is Quarry Road, and this is where a stoplight will be installed based off the warrants studies that's dictated in the master plan. To bring that in, so that based off the number to evaluate, and we put thresholds to make sure once it hits that trigger to go ahead and get it done. Of course, a roundabout, community, open space. This is the commercial tract that I was referring to. Now, they will be doing road improvements up to this point. They will not be doing all the way up to the property line. That's when the commercial tract will do the widening of the road. Because we don't want to know if there's going to be any access here or any of that stuff, so you want to wait until the commercial tract gets submitted to determine where it should be done with the road improvements, and that's standard policy. As I move along here, I've gone to the middle track. This is further south of that main track. If I look at this diagram here, that was what I just showed you. And I moved further south along Rolesville Road. So this is the second entrance. There's the amenity and the kiosks and the pools, kiosks for mailboxes. And of course, we're going into public streets, etc., with sidewalks on both sides. And of course, this is the second entrance with the left and right turn lane that was recommended from the TIA. Moving further to the first one, close parallel to the road, you see the lots as approved in that plan, plus the greenway trail. There's a greenway trail that will run parallel to the bypass, east to west, and you'll see that in the series of pictures I just showed you. We moved down one section further south to the center. If I go back to this little box here, if you can see, it's right there in the middle, so we're getting more into the interior with the lots. Again, I've popped back up to the corner with the bypass. Again, continuation of that bypass. Here we'll be getting into the future townhouse. The townhouse plan will come to you as a site plan. And it is showing lots here. We are allowed to go ahead and show the lots, but it's subject to that site plan they have to submit for the townhouse. That will be a quasi-judicial hearing on our site plan later.
The townhomes are along the bypass.
Parallel to there's three sections. There's a section here that's in the center that's adjacent to the bypass.
And the next section is single-family homes?
There's more sections of single family. This is
I'm
part
just
of
trying to understand the pictures.
right. Yes, you'll see it more clustered on that overall plan. So I moved further down. Again, there's the Greenway Trail parallel to the bypass, and then of course that's a thoroughfare, a landscape buffer in between. It contains the trail. Now I have moved you further away from the bypass to the second roundabout. And your location is approximately right there. We're back into the interior. There's two roundabouts. There's one at the front entrance at the Quarry Road, and there's one further in the interior here. There's where the townhouses you were talking about. Here's the single-family lots. Another mail kiosk here. And, of course, that's the townhouses with the concept of what they'll be submitting for their site plan.
How many kiosks are in this massive complex?
I think there's three. Let me check. It's a big development, so they did spread them out. Yes, they didn't make them all in one spot.
I'm sorry, how many pages did they say about? Just the section.
11.
How many years is that?
Depends on how fast they sell homes. But it's 11 phases in this project. So I will continue on briefly. This is further south. That's that second pond. High school's over here. The lower driveway is south of this site. This is just showing you more sections. There's where the other lower end, this is all townhomes. And this will be the second entrance. Now, this will not be connected unless the adjoining property develops to the west. This is separate from, this is a separate entrance. But it's across from the lower entrance of the high school. Lines up with that. And there will be turn lanes and et cetera to accommodate turn movements at this location. The traffic impact analysis determined it was not necessary to have a stoplight there
Wait, where?
at the lower end.
And that's phase 10, it looks like on my little circles.
I think you're correct.
Phase 10, and so those are all townhomes?
Yes.
In that area?
And they won't be able to start that until they submit a site plan that we bring to you to approve on a quasi-judicial hearing. But this is just so that they show the streets and the subdivision when they're ready to move forward.
Can you repeat the last thing you said in regards to not having a traffic signal?
The specific traffic impact analysis that we had an independent review with another consultant to determine, and DOT, that a traffic light, it would not be warranted at this location at this time.
That's right across the street from the entrance to the school?
The lower entrance, yes.
Well, you know what, there's accidents that happen right at that intersection all the time, so I'm not sure.
Now, that could change with events and situations, but that's what was specifically identified through, and that was handled through congestion management and review as well.
How long was that traffic study done?
Last, it was done in 18,
I know there was a lot of talk.
and it was done when the high school was in operation too. They did do traffic counts when during school hours.
But as these units are being built and there's more occupancy, is there like a threshold that we're checking on with this traffic? Because that's a lot.
Well, there is a statement in the plan that if the conditions warranted evaluation, it could be done, yes. And DOT can call on it too when they get enough thresholds for traffic accidents.
And we can call on it too, right? I mean,
That's
we can
correct.
ask
That's
them-
correct.
We can
We can ask them to
hey, we need-
investigate on the demand, and yes, at any time.
I mean, the one nice thing about that is those are independent of the rest of the properties too. Like that's not connected to anything else. Those are just.
Now, this is a collector street that was designed to accommodate future growth and development, and there will be a study when that connects in. So just kind of move along. There's several lots, continuation through different sections. The Greenway Trail along the parallel continues here. There will be a bridge, boardwalk here, crossing the stream. And this comes and ties into the pedestrian tunnel on the south side of the pedestrian tunnel and the bypass.
We'll get that bridge, right?
You will get your bridge. This is not an impossible bridge.
All right. I'll make sure.
It's not an impossible bridge.
Yeah,
And it will then, this trail will also, I'm sorry,
is there a standard to the bridge?
it will be similar to what you see out at, that was put in by the over here at, from Main Street Park going over to Heritage East. Willoughby. What was put in adjacent to Willoughby and Granite Falls.
So was that like a standard? In other words, I
It was
think
a
that's one
standard.
of the things we need to look
We do
into.
have, we have an engineered standard we use on that.
We have a bridge standard for.
We will use the same design for these as well.
We use the Wake Forest standard.
Wake Forest standard. Is it more like a boardwalk?
Yeah,
per se?
it's boardwalk bridge, yes, it's wood.
And it doesn't have rails on it?
It does have rails.
It does have.
This will probably have a rail. It depends on the height. If it's low to the ground, it doesn't need the rails, but once you get above 24 inches, I think you need to have a rail.
Yeah, most of it that's on the Greenway path that leaves our park is sort of like a boardwalk. It don't have rails. I mean, it got a little rail, but it don't have, it don't
Dep-
have, what I want to call it.
Depends on the height and safety. You don't want somebody to hit the side and go over.
That's why I was wondering if it's standard. It sounds like it is.
Yes.
And I know it's gonna be a boardwalk, but can we also look at that? I know it's this far in advance, but can we look at that also as a? Wake Forest also has the steel bridges out of Core 10. They're a lot less maintenance, I would feel like, over the years. Because, I mean, they're going to rust once and that's going to be it. It's going to stay that way. So could that be a possible option that we could look into? I don't know how far up the, how off the,
And it's important to someday get to an actual standard. That really helps to have a standard to inform when the developers when they're doing their plans.
I think that's what you need to y'all need to start considering. What is the, because I think a boardwalk more like over a wetland type area where it's kind of low, and a bridge is something over a ravine or something.
yeah, and I don't know what the drop is on this one, but just something to consider for maintenance.
You also see that there's the continuation of this trail, and it is incorporating or included on a portion of DOT land. My understanding from the communication with the developer, they are negotiating with acquiring that land. Our condition noted on the drawings is they have to either get an easement from DOT or get ownership or something to where they have the right to go put the trail in. The reason it's that way is topography. It's pretty steep through there, drops off. You've probably seen it when you drive by. And that's why you see this more essentially the switchback design.
Yeah.
And then there's the big mound of rock covered in this location. That's why they're having to do it on this side.
Yeah, and that may be a question once we get to asking the developers, but my understanding was now that the DOT was going to sell it, and we decided not to buy it, and it was under the pretense that it would straighten out that a little bit. It wouldn't be quite as zigzagged.
And if that's the case, but I think there was some issues with
Is that
topography.
not what you remember, Kelly? Or?
I think we should ask the developer. I went back after you and I talked yesterday, and I did look at that. I think it is a topography issue. But we can ask why it's designed that way.
It is a severe zigzag there, I think. That
My understanding is topographic conditions there. Again, we'll know more when we get into the detailed engineer drawings because they'll show more
what
details.
did the Greenway guy say about that zigzag? It'd be fun riding a bike on it.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah. That's going to, I mean, that's going to be
How safe it would be a bike and a pedestrian on it at the same time, but
I think we had the same kind of condition over in Carlton Point, too.
That's right, there's one over there.
Yeah,
Big one
they have
over there.
kind of a switchback, too, over there. Yeah, because it kind of, that all works into each other from
And
opposite sides.
at Millbridge, we have a couple switchbacks.
This final, now where your dot is right now, this is going to work out towards the other underpass to the,
In that direction, yeah, there's more sections to show. Keep moving along here. There's 18 slides. I'm sorry. There's a lot of slides. So that will continue as you identify to this point, and that's where the end of this project along the bypass. And then when the joining property develops, we'll go to the second tunnel. We'll carry it over to the second tunnel.
I was thinking April had a question. Do you have a question? You okay?
Thank you.
So trying to continue back, of course, there is the Greenway Trail going south, or east, excuse me. It's shown on there, continuing there. And of course, you're getting to the lower end, to the lower property, to the south of the site, to the east, or you want to call it southeast. And of course, the other sections with street stubs. And of course, that's the last corner on the lower left-hand side. So that's it in a nutshell with all the lots combined, trying to give you details. It does have a similar situation it was in the previous case with the road improvements. They are included in the preliminary. The traffic impact analysis conditions were addressed in the special use permit and therefore will be carried out with this construction with approval as preliminary. TRC recommendation is to approve. PR 20-01, staff recommendation is to approve this preliminary plat. Planning board met on September the 28th, 2020, and unanimously voted to recommend approval of the PR 20-01 with the two alternate considerations on that one section we've already identified. And therefore, we recommend approval.
Were there any concerns expressed from any of the planning board members?
I cannot recall any specific concerns at this moment. There was discussion quite a bit of always about traffic and getting the information about it in the design. Thank you.
I don't recall recall there being any.
Okay, good. Traffic matters.
Yes. So I'll leave it, answer any questions or let you continue with your deliberations.
Danny, I'm just a little confused. When I look at the cover page, it says that the preliminary site subdivision plat, the major subdivision approval for residential planned unit developed PUD located at 900 East Young was for 804 lots on a total of 264.27 acres. Now, a request is for preliminary subdivision plat approval administrative for 485 lots on the same amount of land.
And those are the single family. Those are the single family.
Those are the single family. Okay, so we're only doing the
There's
single.
324 townhome lots.
Okay,
20 plus 400 and what, Jackie? How much was that?
485.
445.
on August 19th, we approved a
Yeah, and-
special use permit.
Now, there's some also the lots in that number. It's the northern tract that's included that's not part of this plan.
Phase 11, 12, and 13, I'm guessing,
Yes,
Okay,
north side of.
the north side, that's not
1 through
included.
10 and 14.
So
Okay,
I apologize, but yes, we're giving you numbers from the report
Okay.
and the document, but it's a portion of that.
all right, okay, I'm okay.
Thank you.
The one question I have about the greenway, I know we're in phases all the way through here. Are we going to piece this greenway together, or is it going to kind of go through initial?
The specifics in the special use permit says each phase being built, that greenway has to be put in.
Okay.
So that means when they get to their final plat, that segment shown on that portion of the phase has to be constructed. But yes, there, you will have, as it moves back with construction and building, it will not be done because you're going to be grading the site first, then you can put all the infrastructure in. Now, they may choose, I'll let them decide that their own path. They may choose to do multiple phases at one time. They're probably evaluating all that with the market and so on like that, but that's all in the consideration.
Thank you.
But specifically, it says you do that phase, you must put in the Greenway Trail, and then there's also specifics about the recreation amenities when they go in.
Any other questions for the staff?
Is there recreation?
Yes, there's a recreational pool, and then there's various other elements identified in the master plan.
I didn't see any specific, like there was a tot lot in the other one, I don't see.
Yeah, and again, there's a lot in there. You have to go page by page with the 18 pages, but there is other amenities in there.
It says you come in, right, Danny?
Yes,
It says you come in.
the big one is up here, the entrance right here.
This is amenity area? Okay. I struggled with those pieces of maps. I understand you were trying to zoom in, but I need the big view. So
I understand.
I'm using this and then going to that.
I understand.
It has helped me.
Yeah, we do,
Well, this-
and I do too.
And then this is a big project. This has been a challenge to try to
Right,
show all of
and
this.
that's fine to zoom in, but it helps to have the big picture and then go to the larger zoom in.
Right, to get orientation of where it fits. Yes, I
Right,
understand.
exactly. It's a big puzzle.
Yes, it is.
Any other questions for Danny? All right, wishes board, do y'all have any other questions for Danny or any of the folks that's here?
I want to go back to the commercial piece that Michelle brought up earlier. Now, you said that the landowner has it for sale. Is that what you said?
It is my understanding that it is for sale.
So our previously identified definition of a PUD, didn't it have to include commercial, or was?
That is identified as commercial, that's correct. That was
So
in
it had to
the,
just be identified as commercial. There was no,
it is the zoning of the property today. It is it's a residential mixed use category under the PUD, and the uses listed there are allowed. Now, they will need to find somebody to go develop it, whether it be a tract builder for commercial or a actual tenant that wants to go in, per se.
they. Who's they? When you say they will need to.
Another developer party out there in the market.
So this developer is not responsible for development of that
The
commercial?
ones that are doing the residential are not doing the commercial.
That makes
How did
absolutely
they get
zero
past us,
sense.
right? I'm trying to
Yeah,
figure out how
that
did
makes
that get
zero
past
sense. So that's not a PUD that we were trying to define. I'm confused.
Well, you still have the original property owner that petitioned the PUD, and then that property owner is going to sell this property to a residential builder.
There's no incentive for him to sell it except for the proceeds whenever it sells, because I'm just trying to figure out, because sometimes I'm like, how did that get past my way of thinking about it?
I think because it had the 5 components, and the greenway in this one, help me, was greenway,
It does have a greenway,
family home,
townhomes,
townhomes.
two different categories, of residential, single family, and it's got commercial. As a matter of fact, it's essentially it's got all 5.
Is your challenge that you're talking about?
It does not have all 5.
Doesn't have commercial.
It doesn't
have
have commercial,
apartments.
Danny.
Well, it doesn't have the commercial yet, but it's designated on the plan as commercial.
Designation means nothing
But,
about what's going to be built.
I mean, it could turn into a Villages of Rolesville, which was a PUD, but we've never had retail in there. We've never had commercial in Villages of Rolesville. And there's no way we can change that, is there?
I just
Yeah,
keep
I mean,
remembering.
I think our solution is the UDO.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
really
it's-
need to get it right in the UDO.
It's not your fault. Nobody's fault. I was just
Oh.
pointing out that it just doesn't make logical
No,
sense.
if you want to get technical and fair, we all want to be fair. We have proved a couple that didn't have any commercial, even planned to have commercial in it.
That was the problem with the PUD.
Yeah, that's right. So,
Exactly.
I just remember commercial coming up in that conversation, but I know it was the conversation about this whole project. There was a lot of energy given to the other side, with the townhouses and the access road and all of that. And I just feel, me personally, like, I don't know, I thought there was something more said about this commercial, like there was an interested party or something. No? Not at all?
I'm not aware of one at this time that I've been contacted
yeah,
about.
if it was by, the guy that,
The owner.
I guess the person that put it all together originally, because, Mr. Shuren put it together and kind of got these guys interested in the residential piece. But maybe he did say something about he was talking to somebody. I don't know.
I thought so.
But really, this area, if you think about it, it's going to have a lot more commercial than what we see on this corner, because it's designated for commercial across the street, in the school corner. Probably the other piece in the other intersection will be commercial. So it'll be a little commercial hub there, more than what you see on this drawing, I think, at some point. in time,
Sure,
if we
well,
ever
at
get it.
some point, that's just the point.
I just mention it because I think about the places like 5401. I don't know if that's the name of the place, down Lewisburg
That's it.
Road, and then the place out in Wendell Falls. So what do we need to do differently? Is all I'm saying. And I know Wendell Falls is, I'm sure people could give me all kinds of particulars, but 5401, I've been there and talked to them, and they have people recruiting for commercial, and
But
they
they
are
don't have
coming
any
in.
commercial yet, right?
Yeah, they do.
Oh, they do?
They
Okay.
definitely do, and they're not done building.
Okay.
Anyway, I just want to point that out.
This is a real good discussion, and I think we really need to have it when we start working on the UDO, because I think it's it's really good discussion for that. Now for the Plat plan itself, the one, we approved this already from a practicality standpoint, but not the Plat plan. So from that, any other questions you guys have on that? I have a couple, and I don't know if the developer can answer this or not, but the sanitary fall you have to put in kind of on your eastern southern part. Do you already have permits to be able to do that, easements that's going to be required to do that already? I know you got to go through a couple of property owners, or maybe 3 or 4 property owners to get that done. Is that
believe the
already in place, your easements?
Mayor, I think the sewer line is already existing. It comes from the
No,
high
it's a
school.
sewer line, on drawing, that goes through, that little tip. If you look at the little left-hand tip up there at bottom, there's another
Cross
required,
sewer.
sewer fall on that.
Yes, please.
Good evening. I'm Mike Sanchez. I'm with McAdams, and so the existing sewer outfall, the easement may or may not. We're not sure yet. We've been in discussion with Raleigh about this. May have to get widened, but basically what we're talking with City Raleigh about is how large do they want to see that sewer expanded? How big? And then if it's going to be, if they're going to have us put in a dual sewer right next to it, then they might want the sewer easement widened. But part of our discussion right now is they're not sure that the city wants that. They might have the sewer line expanded. In other words, this line that's there right now, that line basically removed and a larger line put in, meaning it would be in the same trench and the same easement width.
Yeah, the main line is not the one I'm talking about. It's the one that serves the, I guess if you look at drawing, well, actually it's on ours, page 197. I think it's drawing C4-17. There's a sewer line that is additional to your main fall line that is required there that goes down about 3 properties before it hits back in. So that's the one I was more interested in. The second one that you're gonna have to put in.
Do you have that up? Because I guess I'm not exactly sure where you're referring to.
C4-17.
C4-17. Yeah, it's a little different. Route that has to be taken on that one. You can look at C4-19 and it shows going all the way down to where it connects into
Yeah, well, I can put it on the monitor.
You got it.
There was a picture that showed the whole thing, and I'm not finding that here right now. But C4-19 has all the required easements that's going to have to be obtained.
Through here?
So could you describe your area again there?
If you look at like I said, drawing C4-19, it shows the easements that's required to.
To get down to the.
I don't think you have that one there. There it is.
That's not it.
No, that's not it.
It's not it.
No.
414?
C4-19.
You didn't show it now.
Keep going.
419.
That's it. Okay, describe it again one more time. Do you see what he's talking?
Oh, yeah. So you're talking about the Lyles
19.
family.
Going the wrong way, Danny.
You're going the wrong way, Danny. Go the other way.
There it is.
Yeah, the
Right
Laws
here,
family.
right there, Danny.
Laws family is the
19.
main
Right here.
piece you
Right
go
there.
through, I think.
Okay. You know,
That's right. So, and just to make sure I understand, is your question, has there been discussions with those property owners for that easement?
Do
And
you
Raymond,
have
I
all
bel-
the easements required for that, or you're gonna have to do some, we're gonna have to do some condemning, or what, do you know?
This is, yeah, we had talked about the Lyles family and there's like those 3 properties coming down through here.
If the commissioners wanna look at another picture, on C4-00, the big drawing, it's a little cutout in the top, left side that shows the whole thing. Is it?
We're in the process of starting to kind of evaluate the sewer through that area, but we have not acquired that easement on the Lyles track yet at this
Right.
time.
Okay.
did that answer the question?
It does. So you gotta work on that then to get that easement then.
Do we have any cases of the greenway being over top of the sewage line on this property? 'Cause I know we had that issue with the last one where it had to be moved over, so I just didn't know if there was anything where it.
I'm not aware of this greenway being over the sewer line.
Okay. Because when you know what happens with that, you slide the greenway over, you cut down 15 more trees because you were so.
I do want to, since you mentioned greenway, I do want to say that, after looking at this, they are putting in close to 2 miles of public greenway, and they did a good job of doing that. I think it's continuous you don't have the breaks that you see, you have to get on sidewalks or whatever. It's only one crossing, just one crossing in this big subdivision, one crossing that you have to make on a street. So I think they did a really good job of building a greenway that is very useful, because there is no irregular stuff in it except for that little zigzag up there. That's the only thing that's kind of irregular. So, but really good job on that, I think. These almost need to be the standard. Any other questions, guys?
I'll make the motion.
Sure.
I make a motion to approve preliminary subdivision plat for case PR 20-01 to point phases 1 through 10 and phase 14 with conditions as presented.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? No? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposes. Unanimous. Thank you, fellas. Good job on this. And like I said, I'm gonna commend you again. Good job on the greenways. I think I really like it when you don't have breaks in it and stuff. So good job on that. Okay, that finishes up on the cases there. Something that we may want to think about as we go forth with our UDO. All this stuff we had talked about before, y'all probably, as going through it, you probably remember, we went through this before and got everything kind of worked out. And it's almost like a redundant thing that we have to do.
It is.
And it may be something that I'm just suggesting that we think about when we do UDO. Did we make it administrative, at that point, and not have to hash it out again? Hashed it out originally,
We were tempted to put it on consent agenda.
Huh?
We were tempted to put it on consent agenda.
Yeah, that's right.
There was a clerk that asked that question. I said, I wasn't too comfortable yet to the new UDO. So.
I'm
Yeah.
actually glad you did.
I think, and here, and I've been thinking about this for the last couple of days, should we actually do it one more time in the end to make sure it's right? I know Paul has some good questions and stuff.
I think you should.
And I almost think, if it's a simple subdivision that doesn't have any public usage to it, because that was my main concern looking at this. How did the public interact with it? And what was supposed to be the commitment from the developer to the public for the greenways and stuff like that? If it's one of these that has public greenways and stuff in it, maybe we should look at it one more time. Maybe if we can designate the difference between that or not, David, and I'm not sure. But a subdivision that's just kind of self-contained and there's no public things we have to consider. If we went through it 3 or 4 times, why do it again?
Sure. Mr. Mayor, as we discussed, for preliminary plat or site plan review sort of items or subdivision plans, the statutes give us the option of either an administrative review or a quasi-judicial review. And we certainly are familiar with the quasi-judicial approach. For the administrative review, the deciding body, whether that's the staff, the planning board, or the board of commissioners, is limited to deciding checklist items. Have they done, as Commissioner Vilga was focusing on, have they checked all the boxes? Have they done all the conditions that were pledged as part of their earlier approvals? Are they showing all of the things that meet our objective standards regarding our streets and greenways? That sort of review. So it's pretty technical, and often that's delegated to staff or to the planning board. The challenge is if it's an administrative review, the board cannot at this stage substitute its judgment in an administrative setting, because at that point you're starting to make quasi judicial kind of choices. And so
And
that's a
my-
balance for the UDO.
That's my frustration, and one of my frustrations is, you know, we've got a lot of homes going right there close to the school. When we finish, we're going to have well over, 15, 1,800 homes in 2 or 3 subdivisions, and every TIA comes in saying there's not going to be a problem with traffic. You know, and I can't sit up here and say, yes, there is. This is just common sense. I can't say that because I'm not a traffic impact specialist or a traffic study, and that road concerns me. It really does, especially with teen drivers leaving that high school. And maybe this is not the time to discuss that, but we need to talk about that when we talk about the UDO. Because you've got, it's just like the argument I made about Thales Academy out here. And I said I wanted to stop light there immediately because teen drivers with the line of sight that they've got at that second entrance out there, kids in a hurry to get away from school. I know. I drove my car to school when I was young until I started driving a school bus. Back then, you know, junior, senior, you had proper grades, you could drive a school bus. But I drove my car to school. And when I drove my car to school, when that bell hit 3:30, I was running to the parking lot, hop in my car to head out. And I could be careless. And I know these kids can too. We just need to think about that road.
Well, the big issue there too is Quarry Road is for your buses coming out of there. The other entrance is for all the students park, and there's no light there, but there's a light up for the bus. So that's a.
I think, so if I may, and I think we should wrap this up, but I think there's 2 points I hear that are ongoing themes. One is, I think we need to have a session about traffic impact and warrants. Warrants drive the improvements. And that's a very important piece, and so we need to learn about that and what that means, because that's where DOT falls in their code and their traffic code, is that it has to meet a certain threshold to be able to qualify for improvements. So that's, I think when we get into traffic, we should have a conversation about traffic and warrants. The second one is timing of commercial. We talked about this, is there's a desire I hear to make sure commercial happens. But I think we need to have that conversation with somebody who can talk to us about when does it happen? How can we have it happen?
Can we stop issuing COs if commercial has not taken place?
I think you will dampen a development in Rolesville tomorrow when you do that. My opinion. Because the commercial developer will tell you it's all about rooftops. And you need the growth to be able to justify. So that's why I want you all, we need to find somebody or have a group discussion about where are we on commercial development as far as how it happens. Because you have met the conditions of the PUD tonight, or in the past, because you have set aside a commercial segment that will always be commercial per PUD. It's just a matter of what I heard everybody tonight talking about is wind, right? Is that generally the wind was the big?
I'm not with the set aside. That makes zero sense to me.
Okay.
Designating it commercial, that's useless. I'm talking about when we were doing the PUD and you said, you can pick Mr. Developer or Mrs. Developer from these 5 components,
Yeah.
and they picked these 3, and these 2 were sitting over there.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
Yeah. That didn't help us, is what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. But in this one, I think that commercial will be developed. Don't know when. That's. So.
Can we do away with bud zoning?
Wait, what?
We do away with bud
We
zoning?
can talk about that during the UDO.
Okay.
So anyway, I think there's good 2 educational points from my perspective. I'd like to, if anybody knows anybody that we can definitely address, bring in a traffic engineer, have a conversation, one of our groups that we hire, If anybody has a good commercial developer that, and probably somebody might be doing something soon, we'd like to talk to you about that too. But I think that's a question that we all need to kind of wrestle with is how do we force a win?
So I think we'll always love talking about PUD, so, you know, the conversation gets back to it. But back to the thing, David, on the administrative approval and kind of what we do tonight, because we probably drift into some categories that probably shouldn't have been in our discussion. Did you see that?
I was willing to defend every conversation that took place this evening on both administrative hearings.
What
I
was
felt
drifted
that, Ronnie.
into? I need to get
I
clarification,
thought the
'cause
board
I'm
did an
like
excellent job.
window.
Did?
I need clarity.
I thought it was fine.
I think we're getting close though, right? I thought so.
We're
too.
getting close to what? What's your concern,
Well,
Ronnie?
you know, if the definitions keep it technical, I think is what you said earlier, right?
That's right. So I'm going to miss it. Section 15.3.8 sets forth a large table in the UDO, and it sets forth everything that a developer needs to include on their preliminary plat. Some of those things are very technical. An arrow that points to the north. Clearly, that needs to be on there. But some of them require some expertise, and that's why we have the TRC review things. But given that it is an administrative review, to the extent that a board member has any sort of knowledge on the topic, like Commissioner Vilga did in terms of his notes regarding conditions that had been imposed, it is certainly appropriate to make sure those boxes are checked. What we can't get back into is relitigating whether we are happy with the choice we made in the past in the quasi-judicial setting, or whether we're happy with the expertise that we accepted in the past regarding items like traffic. But we didn't have that challenge this evening, and it went well.
So let me clarify, because I don't like innuendo, once again. When Danny stood over there and said, and this piece is commercial, that's what brought up the commercial question. And when Danny said to us, staff said this road and what's going to be happening, I wanted clarity on what were the improvements going to be. Was it just a turn lane? Those are the questions I asked about. And then I gave some thoughts about some other things from other neighborhoods that are developing in the commercial. Was that a problem?
I think that was completely fine. I thought you were asking questions for context and generally for policy finding, perhaps as to other cases and the consideration of the UDO in the future. I did not hear anyone venturing into trying to relitigate or redesign. I would say that's the most common challenge at preliminary plat, is that a board will try to redesign the property owner's plan. I wish it were designed like this. I wish the roads were routed like this, and start to try to impose that. That's not something the staff can do, and it's not something that the board could do in an administrative setting to the extent that the way it has been submitted meets our standards. But it certainly, as Commissioner Sutton points out, it can raise to our mind maybe the standard needs to be different, not for this case, but down the road, and that's why we have text change and adoption of standards.
Right.
But then sometimes the information's not brought forward either. So things will be said, and like we'll go, wasn't there a discussion about, yeah, there was something. So sometimes there is some missing components that might have been discussed that will help you get the full context. So that's what I'm trying to get clarity on.
I think the board did an excellent job this
I
evening.
think so too. But
Sure.
for example, I guess for example, the thing that Commissioner Wilson brought up about the space between the two development thing, and we did fix it doing the quasi judicial hearing
a
to
year ago.
have that
Don't move back, please.
that done. But we couldn't get into litigating trying to get them to do that now, could we?
No, sir.
So, he brought it up thinking, that, but what if it wasn't there? If he brought it up and it wasn't there, and we didn't cover it last time, we really couldn't do anything about it, could we?
Probably not. The actual issue that I think may happen, and perhaps it has happened in the past, and I'm glad that Commissioner Vilga mentioned it, quite often our quasi-judicial hearings are quite complex, and we hear a lot of things. We have memories as to conditions that were imposed, and then it is many, many months later that we finally see a technical plan. And so the master plan and the narrative and the conversation is difficult to match up to what we see in the plan. And so it's probably good guidance for the staff, for me, to remember those conditions and make sure we're checking, it's box checking. And that's what we're supposed to be doing now. Everything that was promised at a quasi-judicial hearing, or everything that was pledged as part of a legislative rezoning, which you're going to see that potentially in the Hopper Communities case. You will get conditions proffered by an applicant on a zoning. And then it will be many months later before you see a subdivision. Will you be able to recall all of the things that were promised and pledged?
Yeah, so we should have a list, like, with the maps. Yeah.
Well, that's why we have the staff and the TRC to be on that too.
We're good. Let's move on to item 4. Thank you, David. Thank you, board. Good job tonight. Item 4, review of schedule of fees and changes studies.
So Mayor,
Charges studies. I
sure,
guess.
Mayor and Board, tonight, Lindsay Wagner came back from Chapel Hill, right? Yep. And the promise she made this summer is that we couldn't get it scheduled in front of you this summer, but when we could, she would make that effort to come out and present her findings. And so tonight, she's here to just review the report tonight with you all. We really don't have any recommendations other than we wanted to share this information, show you. I think there's been some questions in the past as to where we are on some fees associated with that. And she's done a good job of kind of analyzing that and bringing forth. And so really this is information only tonight, and looking probably that we would bring back this further discussion in different segments, like the planning items during the UDO, like the rent charges for the parks and community facility during the budget and those type of things. So if you're ready, I'm ready to turn over to Lindsay if you're okay with that.
Sounds good.
Well, I can do a brief introduction. Good evening, Mayor, Board of Commissioners. Do want to thank Ms. Wagner for coming back from her studies to be here tonight. So every year, as part of your budget adoption, you do adopt this schedule of fees and charges. And usually it gets just a cursory update with a few things here and there. So it's been quite a while since we've done a comprehensive review. So that is one of the things that Ms. Wagner did this summer for us. So she put together this memo for you all that's in your packet, and I think she's going to kind of review that with you this evening.
So I compared Rolesville's schedule of fees and charges with other North Carolina communities, some of which were regional, others are just similarly sized, and then a couple are both regional and similarly sized. The first way I compared fees was just the direct comparison of actual costs, so like dollar amount to dollar amount, but then I also looked at the way a fee is charged. So for an example, in the memo, it would be the after-hours rates for facility rentals, where Rolesville currently charges an hourly fee on top of the regular fee if you want to use the facility after hours, holidays, weekends, where sometimes I saw other communities would just charge a additional percentage. And I think that would be helpful, especially if you were to continue to change the prices, you wouldn't have to also change that fee to reflect the increased or decreased price. It would just kind of automatically adjust as a percentage. In addition to the price comparisons, I took in suggestions from department heads about fees or services that Rolesville may currently offer but not charge for, or services that Rolesville does not currently offer but they could in the future. In looking to this, generally if 2 other communities in my research had a specific fee, then I would add it to the list. And overall, I found that there are several charges, typically in planning, where Rolesville charges less for a service than our neighbors or other communities of similar sizing. There are some fees and services that Rolesville does offer and doesn't, charge for. And then there were other kind of miscellaneous topics like that just could be updated, the structure in the fee schedule itself. Like in the current schedule of fees, there is no listing for public records printing per page, like the price per page. So I just suggested implementing that. If someone were to request a public record, you have a standard way of charging for what they're asking for. That was pretty much all of my methodology. I'll give you guys a few seconds to look over the charts, and then I'll be happy to answer any.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
And I've looked over these in detail, and quite frankly, I see where we're lacking quite a bit, and I thank you for this. I saw a special event alcohol vendor permit with town facility rental, $400. If I'm bringing a beer truck or something in here, do you know how many beers I've got to sell just to break even if I've got to pay $400 for a permit? So my question is, and it wouldn't affect me either way because the only alcohol we serve is on site and we don't get involved in that. Is that what other municipalities charge?
Yes.
Yeah.
I know it's at least 400. None of the
I've seen
things
it
I
higher,
suggested surpass the prices that other communities are charging, especially if it was a new fee, because I didn't want to be excessive in my recommendation.
Yeah.
So at least 400.
Yeah, I was thinking of the barbecue thing that the chamber does every year. And I think the first year we were involved, we didn't have any alcohol. And then somebody suggested, let's have a beer truck up here, and we did. And we made a bunch of money on the alcohol on the beer truck itself. But I'm wondering, can I get them back up here if they've got to pay or $400 for a permit to come to do that? Or is that something that we would look at as saying the chamber helps economic development? Would we be able to waive the fee on anything like this if it was the board's desire to do that? And again, we can discuss that later, but I was just curious if other municipalities charge $400. So you've answered my question. Thank you.
That's where the recommended price come from, is other places, is that right, or?
Yes, so when recommending a price, I looked at, because the ranges vary, so the cost of any given thing in Pittsboro may be less just because we're in the triangle, and so the cost might be more to reflect the location. So when recommending, I took into account, I've made a spreadsheet, I took into account all of the other amounts that the communities I benchmarked with were charging, and I took into consideration proximity to the triangle, and also this is a smaller community, so I just kind of balanced those factors when recommending prices. But every recommendation is within the range that the other communities are charging.
Some of the ranges are so far apart. For instance, zoning permits from $175 to $1,800. Is that Raleigh, the big boy on the block, charging more?
Sometimes.
Versus somebody like us that charges less?
Sometimes, and again, that goes back into the location. So Pinehurst might charge, with the planning things, I guess some of this also reflects the municipality's goal and their version of a UDO, and how they choose to charge things. But generally, the more expensive ones will be Cary, Raleigh, larger areas that are also in the triangle.
Sketch plan reviews from $150 to $2,900. We're talking about 20 times almost. 150 times 20 is $3,000. I would like for us to, when we look at this, consider what our closest neighbors have, so we will be in competition with Wake Forest and Nightdale and Zebulon so we won't lose economic development to them. But
I have a
other
question
than
for
that,
you.
I think it's a good report. It's very eye-opening.
I was looking at your food truck and your mobile restaurant permit, and I really didn't understand what that means. Annual renewal. Is there a permit right now that they have to purchase, or do they just do it when they're in town?
If there's a permit, it's not listed in the current schedule of fees and charges, so no.
Okay,
I would
because-
guess,
all right,
however.
so I asked that because I thought that if a food truck wanted to come into Rolesville, they had to pay some type of a charge.
Permit, I don't know if that's paid, I can't remember, I'd have to go back to the code.
Oh, there's no paying for that?
Yeah, so,
Okay.
an example of things that might be in the code, so, the peddling and soliciting permit underneath the police section, that is currently listed in the code. However, it's not on the actual document of the schedule of fees and charges. That goes out, that is what most people in the community that are looking would see. So it might be in the code, but there's no charge, but that's
Okay.
something you could charge for.
I thought there was a charge. Okay. All right, that's fine. So then getting to the signs.
Yes.
So it says what? Expanded options other than permanent and temporary. So examples are wall-mounted, freestanding, and sandwich board. So are you saying that other places charge for a wall-mounted sign?
Yes, there's a variety of the way signs were listed and charged in other towns and cities. Currently, Rolesville's schedule, there's one price for any type of temporary sign and one price for any sign that would be considered permanent, but there's not exactly detail into which, like the different types that could, subcategories. And so there are cities and towns that I saw that they did have a separate price for a sign that's mounted on a wall versus a sign that's standing on a pole, even though they're both considered permanent.
Okay, so is this like an annual? Did you see it as annual, or was it when needed? For example, the sandwich signs that you may see around town, does Roseville charge for that or no? Anybody? Amy, do you know? They do not charge?
I don't know.
Huh?
I don't know.
Okay.
But-
I can tell you from managing a shopping center with a real estate investment company in the past, that the signage was a one-time fee when it was put up. And then if you enlarged it or changed it in some way, if it was a larger one, if there was drastic changes, you had to go back for approval. But usually it was a one-time fee. Now, I don't know about sandwich boards or anything like that, but in the municipalities that I've worked in, that they had set standards for, depending upon the size building, you could have a certain, so many cubic feet or linear feet, or I don't know the terminology, or remember the terminology, which it was, or square feet of signage, and you paid for that.
Once a year or just once?
One time.
Okay, so
Installment.
then my next question is getting away from the signs. It's permits for businesses, and we talked about this too. So, and I know other municipalities do charge for businesses, whether it's a home business, if it's registered with what is it, not the department, the secretary, I think?
Secretary of State.
Yeah, if it's registered there, you have to pay a fee there. But Rolesville used to have it where you had to pay, and they no longer have it. And that is a great, I'm sure people are going to hate me for
The
saying it.
legislature eliminated that about 3 years ago.
Right.
There are some municipalities that are doing it.
I don't know how, we need to check on that, but they specifically did eliminate that.
Okay, I'm going to be smart and not say what municipalities, but I will tell you later. Okay, for sure.
So there are a couple of workarounds on all of this. As we think about our fee schedules, there is an overarching collar, if you will, on the fees that we can charge that are related to building code, zoning, regulation of development, subdivision, signs. And that is a statutory provision that essentially provides that the fees that we charge need to be reasonably related to the cost of our administration of that service. So simply limiting ourselves to, we found a municipality that was as high as, and so we went to the 75th percentile on that, would be a risky legal position. Rather, the finance officer would ask our planning director to keep track of what it costs us to administer these things in terms of staff time, materials, and those sort of items, so that we could fairly recoup from our applicants the cost of processing their requests. That's the one piece. The other is, it is entirely still permitted to have a zoning permit charge. That is a confirmation that what you want to do is permitted in a particular zoning district. For example, a home business permit could be something that requires a charge to at least partially offset the staff cost of determining whether you comply. And that may be something that your bank or your business partners would require. So it's not the same as a business privilege license, which has been outlawed.
Okay, gotcha. So I just want to end mine by saying thank you for pulling this together, because looking at the range, as Jackie had mentioned, it's such a huge range. So I'm assuming with everybody in between, it wasn't no one-day job. So I do thank you for pulling this together. I
And
just don't like some of the numbers that I'm seeing now.
Some communities budget their inspections department and their planning and development departments as completely revenue funded. So all of their budget has to come from fees collected. If that is your structure, you might expect fees to be higher.
Wow. Okay, makes sense. Thank you again.
Yep. Thank you. Nice report. Thank you very much.
Guys, have a great evening. Thank you.
Good luck finishing up
All
school.
right.
Thank you.
The next item, I think, is a request from attorney to go into executive session. Can I have someone to make that a motion?
There's special verbiage. Do you have
Anybody
it?
have it?
It's on the agenda.
You want me to do it?
Yep.
Oh, it is? Oh, I didn't see.
All right, make a motion to recess to executive session pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A3. Consult with the town attorney concerning the handling of a claim, judicial action, mediation, arbitration, or administrative procedure.
Okay. Got a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're in closed session, and we will take a 5-minute recess.